What's going on, everyone? Two of the players I am arguably the most excited to see is Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura. These two have been absolutely putting in work this entire offseason. They were putting in work together out in Japan with Phil Handy, which you absolutely got to love to see. These were the two guys that the Lakers acquired that many people, myself included, were most excited about, right? And I was preaching for the Lakers to get these guys. I kind of got the nickname Lakerdamus, and it's kind of like this running joke because of many ways because of the Rui Hachimura thing. I made a video talking about Rui and how the Lakers should go and acquire Rui Hachimura, and then like literally that day, like hours later, they went and acquired Rui Hachimura, which was a big surprise. And then Jared Vanderbilt, I was preaching since last year's offseason that the only way I would ever do the Utah deal was if you could get Jared Vanderbilt in that deal. And Utah was completely against it, and then eventually they finally gave in, and the Lakers were able to get Jared Vanderbilt, and you really felt his impact. You didn't really feel Rui Hachimura's impact until the playoffs, right? He kind of struggled a little bit when we first acquired him. I was a little passive, ended up falling out of the rotation, which, I mean, Rui himself credited as like a big motivator for him to improve. He was working with Phil Handy, working hard, fixed his shot, got back into the rotation, and then ended up becoming a big piece for us during the postseason. And that ended up leading to him getting a really good contract, right? He ended up getting $17 million a year. And Jared Vanderbilt, he immediately, you felt his impact. I mean, we went from a middle of the pack defense to the number one defense because Jared Vanderbilt was that important, that significant, that much of just a quality defender. I mean, there's a real argument that he's a top 5 defensive player in the league as far as like, one-on-one individual defenders. I mean, he just gets after. He's got good size, good length. Supposedly he's like 6'10 now, which if that's true, watch out. But the question mark is like who starts between these two, right? Because you're going to have LeBron and you're going to have Anthony Davis. That's 2 of the 3 in your front court. Then you're going to have D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, most likely. Those will be the 2 in your backcourt. And so I don't imagine that they gave Rui Hachimura $17 million plus a year for him to come off the bench, right? But Jared Vanderbilt is an absolute menace. The big knock on him is his shooting, right? Like he's a liability on the offensive end. All he's been doing just nonstop rigorously is shooting the corner 3, working on the corner 3, and working out with Phil Handy, right? Ever since the Lakers picked up his option, he has been nonstop in the lab, going to work and working on that shot. And if he even becomes a semi-serviceable just shooter, there's a real argument for him to start over Rui Hachimura. Primarily, Rui is more of a 4 than he is a 3. Right? Now, Rui Hachimura, and we'll get into him here in a moment and make an argument for him as well. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. But like Jared Vanderbilt is a 3. Right? And the beauty of Jared Vanderbilt is his ability to defend pretty much all positions, right? I mean, he's not, you don't want him having to defend like Jokic or Embiid or something like that. But if he did get put on an island there, he can at least hold his own and, try to make things difficult, right? But this is a guy that is just an elite level defensive guy. And with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, D'Lo, you have an offensive balance there, right? You got 2 guys that can shoot 40% in D'Lo and Austin Reeves. LeBron James is LeBron James, and Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. Jared Vanderbilt makes a lot of sense in the starting lineup. The problem is that can he shoot the 3 ball consistently? Not saying he has to shoot 40% from 3. Obviously, that would be nice. But can he just even be league average to where teams have to respect it? To where if teams leave him open, he can make you pay. If that happens, then it's going to be really tough to start anybody over Jared Vanderbilt. Because that was kind of like the big caveat of him, right? Like, he's great defensively, but when he's in the game, we're basically playing 4-on-5 on offense, right? And teams just basically just leave him alone on an island. He also needs to work on his hands, because what also tends to happen is the guy defending him ends up sagging off of him and then kind of loses track of him, and he ends up making a cut, gets the pass, and either fumbles the pass or doesn't properly secure it, goes up and just botches the shot. We saw that happen too many times last year. And it's because he's not really catching the ball, right? He's not really focused on the ball. He's focused on getting to a spot or getting in his momentum. He needs to work on his hands. If he can work on his hands, that would be another huge factor. And the third thing I'd really like to see him hopefully working on is his passing. Because if he could pass, then that kind of gives him like the Lamar Odom effect for the Lakers. A guy that can go from point to point, grab the rebound, and run in transition and set guys up and get guys going. We saw him do that several times throughout the course of the season for us, but I'd like to see him be more comfortable, working on his ball handling, working on his passing skills, his three-point shot. Like those kind of things I think would be very valuable for him as a player. He's still very young, right? He's only 20, he just turned 24. So he still has a long career ahead of him. You know, he's got at least 10 plus years ahead of him. And hopefully they're all with the Lakers, because I really like Jared Vanderbilt, as I'm sure many of you are. But if he's just a serviceable offensive player, he is better suited than Rui Hachimura is at the 3 spot. And you get the defense, and if you can get the offense with that, then there's a real argument for Jared Vanderbilt. Now, Rui's been working just as hard in the lab. He's been working nonstop, been working with Phil Handy, and we saw what Phil Handy was able to do with Rui Hachimura in like a month's time. Imagine an entire offseason working with Phil Handy. Rui is probably going to be much improved. And offensively, there's absolutely no comparison. Like, Rui might be one of our most skilled scorers, right? I'm not saying that he's one of our most skilled players or one of our best, or necessarily our best player by any means, but just from like a pure scoring standpoint. I mean, the guy shot like 55% in 2-point range, and like 80% of those were pull-ups or mid-range. Like, the guy has a lethal mid-range shot, right? Like, very few players have. You know, think of like the Kawhi Leonards, the Chris Pauls, like guys like that just have, or even, DeMar DeRozan, stuff like that. He just has an absolute, just lethal mid-range. On top of that, he looked to be much improved from 3-point range. Can that translate into the regular season? If that translates, then that would be huge. And some people might be thinking, like, why wouldn't it translate? Well, Rui Hachimura also has a history of being very good in the playoffs, and then during the regular season, kind of being average. Even with Washington, that was the trend. He'd be in the playoffs, he'd shoot like 60% from 3 in the playoffs, and then go in the regular season and shoot like 33%. It just, for whatever reason, he just plays better in big moments, which is a good thing, right? That's what you want to see from players. But he needs to get more consistent. He also isn't a very good defensive player. Now, he was much better for the Lakers than he ever was with the Washington Wizards, but he's nowhere close to the level of Jared Vanderbilt, and especially at the 3 spot. Rui Hachimura really struggles against the quicker, more agile, twitchy type forwards, right? He's better suited against the bigger, burly type forwards, and that's why he's best suited at the 4 spot. No, he's good at guarding bigger players because he's strong. He's got a good lower sense of gravity. He's got, just good physical tools to bang with the big boys. I mean, we even saw him have success against Jokic, right? Which is massive. Not saying that, I'd want him guarding Jokic all game, but if he ended up getting switched on him, he can hold his own. He was doing a great job, period. And so he is best suited at the 4 spot. I truly believe Rui Hachimura is the LeBron replacement. I think when LeBron, whether he retires or goes plays with the Sun or does whatever, in the next few years, Rui Hachimura, I think, is the guy that ends up stepping into that starting role at the power forward. I think Jared Vanderbilt probably ends up being our starting 3, and then you have Anthony Davis. That's very likely going to be our front court for the foreseeable future. But there is a real argument for Jared Vanderbilt to be the starting 3, just because Rui is not best at that. There's 2 types of forwards in the league. There are the Mikal Bridges of the world, and then there are the Aaron Gordons of the world, right? Aaron Gordon, he can go out and defend threes at times, but he's a 4 in today's NBA. That's Rui Hachimura. Rui Hachimura is a 4 in today's NBA. Can he guard a 3 in spots? Absolutely. Can he play the 3 in spots? Absolutely. But he is best in that 4 spot. And so to have him play heavy minutes in the 3, I just think is a little tough. But I don't think you can go wrong with either of these. I mean, the fact that this is even a real argument or debate shows how talented both of these guys are and how promising the Lakers' future is. You have 2 legit forwards that could play either forward spot and make a huge impact. Jared Vanderbilt would need to bulk up a little bit if he wanted to play the 4 regularly, but which might also not be the best thing, right? Because he is kind of twitchier. He's good at just moving his feet laterally, and that's kind of Rui's problem, right? Rui's not very quick-footed, but I don't know. I mean, look, again, you can make a real argument for either of these 2 to start. My guess is they start Rui Hachimura just because, again, they gave him $17 million a year. I imagine that they want him to be the starter. But, I mean, if Jared Vanderbilt is anywhere decent offensively or shooting the 3 ball, it would be really hard not to start him. Really hard. And maybe you start Rui just for the sake of it, right? Just to go, see, look, you're a starter, and kind of make him happy, keep him happy type thing. And then you have Jared Vanderbilt kind of play maybe more minutes or similar minutes. Because Darvin Ham's definitely going to have his work cut out for him. I mean, especially if they want to play Anthony Davis at the 4 more, that means there's not going to be very many minutes at the 4 spot available. So you're going to have to figure out how to get these 2 ample minutes at the 3 spot and, maybe play them sparingly here and there at the 4. But I don't know. I lean towards Jared Vanderbilt starting because I think when you look at the starting unit, Jared Vanderbilt fits better, right? Again, D'Angelo Russell, not a great defensive player at all. Austin Reeves is a good defender, not great. Anthony Davis, arguably the best defensive player in the league. And then LeBron James, at his age, you don't want him playing a ton of defense, right? He can play defense, but he's not going to try super duper hard, right? So Jared Vanderbilt being in the starting unit really, really helps because now you got a arguably number 1 defensive player in Anthony Davis. You have a arguably top 5 defensive player in Jared Vanderbilt. And then you have a good defensive player in Austin Reeves. And then you have, D'Lo and LeBron who are probably going to struggle a bit defensively. Where if you have Rui in the starting lineup, now you have Anthony Davis, who's an elite defensive player, and then a good defensive player in Austin Reeves. And then what can be a good defensive player in Rui Hachimura, but kind of out of position on the defensive end. And then LeBron James and D'Lo. I just think that Jared Vanderbilt makes more sense. But maybe you close with Vando, right? Maybe you start with Rui and close with Vando, right? Maybe you go something like D'Lo, Reeves, Vando, LeBron, and AD. I wouldn't hate that either. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Who do you think should be the starter? Who do you think should get more minutes? Who are you most excited to see? Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below.